Hey, my name is beloslucirean. I don't really know how to open videos. You know what I mean? Do I just say hi? I feel like I need some sort of catchphrase or something like that. But regardless of that, like if you're new to the channel, a little bit about myself. A few years ago, I decided I wanted to be a writer. I write quite a bit in my free time, but to be a good writer, you need to watch movies and read scripts and stuff like that, and just you need to participate, as John Waters would say. So I decided to watch more movies and try to become more of a film buff. I never really watched a whole lot of movies growing up because I have a dog shit attention span. So I've never really seen the classics. Like, for example, I didn't see Star Wars, any of them, until I was 19. But regardless, I slowly want to try to change that, so I've been trying to watch more movies. So if anyone has any movie suggestions, feel free to share them and we can experience them together. Speaking of, this was my first time watching Pan's Labyrinth. I didn't really know what it was. I actually got this and that movie with David Bowie mixed up a lot. I thought they were the same movie, even though I had already seen the David Bowie movie, so I should have known that Pan's Labyrinth was completely different. But that's fine. I hope you stick around, hang out with me, watch me experience this beautiful movie for the first time, and hopefully you feel engaged and entertained by some of the things that I say or the theories that I come up with. Either way, I hope you have a good time here, and I appreciate you being here. Enjoy.
La princesa olvidó quién era, de dónde venía. Su cuerpo sufrió frío, enfermedad y dolor, y al correr de los años, murió. Sin embargo, su padre, el
I wonder if that is somehow like well, it feels reminiscent to Adam and Eve, the knowledge of, you know, a body or whatever. It's been a long time since I went to Catholic school. But this raises, I think, like a philosophical question. If you want to know when you would die, a bigger philosophical question, I think, are you truly alive if you can't experience the negativities of being human? You know, if you couldn't experience sadness, you know, sickness, blah, 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 could you really truly appreciate what it is to be alive? You know, some people would argue no, some people would argue yes. I don't know. But I personally think, I don't know, maybe because like since I was a kid, I've always had this like pursuit of like knowledge or like to understand things. If I could be the only person in the world to have some sort of immortality, I was always like, yes, I would, because I want to know as much as possible about everything. But as I've gotten older, I still feel that way, but I think also not as strongly, in that like I realize that like the beauty of life is to be able to have Korean barbecue once in a while, because if I had it every day it wouldn't be special. And because life is like this limited time thing that you can experience probably only one time, that's what gives it its beauty.
Ya eres muy mayor para llenarte la cabeza con tantas zarandajas. Di que
I've always, I keep, well, it's my video, I could pause as much as I want, but I always thought it was stupid where people are like, oh, you're too old for things. No one's too old for whimsy. What does that even mean? I know that's not the point, but like, it's always been a pet peeve of mine.
Ofelia. Ofelia. Ven.
He visto nada.
Pero mira cómo te has puesto los zapatos.
Okay, maybe she does have a little bit too much whimsy in her heart. That wasn't a fairy. Is that what fairies look like in mythology? If so, it might have been a fairy. Never mind. That's my bad. It just looked like a big bug to me. It also just registered to me that Spain, if I remember correctly, was allied with Germany, correct? Well, you can't answer right back right now, but if I remember correctly. So, so like these are like Nazis. Okay, so now I'm like rooting against the little girl and her mom. You know what I mean? Like, I guess like it's for survival, but like, I don't know. Now I kind of want their cars to blow up, but whatever. Can no one else see the big ass bug, I guess? Or like me, I don't know. Keep watching.
Es un laberinto. Nada, un montón de piedras muy viejas que han estado siempre ahí. Antes incluso.
Is there a difference between a labyrinth and a maze? I'm too lazy to Google that.
No más de 2 gotas antes de acostarse.
No, in the 40s, that's probably just straight heroin. Like, they just gave her just furious heroin, knocked her right out. I guess they're setting up that like the I don't want to call her a maid if she's not a maid, because I don't know, it feels A little racist, but I guess the serving isn't better. Mercedes and the doctor, I'm assuming, are helping like the guerrilla fighters in the woods, which is I'm 100% with. Very controversial take, but I'm very anti-fascist. Don't worry about Ophelia, she's not a snitch. I can already tell. She's got good vibes. Yeah, of course. I'm surrounded by a bunch of Nazis. Also, I wonder why she's so sick. I know I'm asking a bunch of questions early on in the film that they'll probably explain if I just shut up and, you know, keep watching. But also at the same time, I like yapping.
¿Por qué tenías que casarte?
Also kind of wondering the same thing. You couldn't have found, like, a janitor, a school principal. You had to marry a Nazi? I don't know if I believe that, mama. There was no other good men. You could only find the Nazi.
¿Quién le ha dicho a usted que la criatura es un varón?
No me joda.
A las 20 horas se detectó actividad en la zona.
I feel like that was a reasonable question. Am I crazy? Okay, yeah, I guess it's just Nazi hubris, I guess. Jesus Christ. Okay. All right. Well, that really set the tone for the kind of movie this is going to be. I honestly thought it would be like not Disney movie-esque, of course. I mean, it has Nazis and it's during, you know, World War II, so I wasn't expecting like Disney, but like there's a certain level of brutality I just wasn't expecting that he just demonstrated that like really just took me back. I mean, took me up. What, you know, like I meant. Shut up.
A ver si aprenden a registrar esta gentuza antes de venir a molestarme.
Sí, mi capitán.
It's hard not to separate the fact that like Nazis took notes from the cruelty that America demonstrated historically, but also that like, not to make it too political, but the current climate that we're in and just the general horrors that America has demonstrated and acted out against the world in general. Maybe those were resistance fighters. Probably. But more than likely, they were probably just actual farmers hunting rabbits. And that kind of cruelty dished out to innocent civilians by a belligerent force. It's just very reminiscent of like America and the quote unquote wars we've been in post World War II and the innocent people we've harmed. Not to get too political, of course. Please still follow me, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Please. I need the money and validation. I will never talk about politics again. Just kidding. Follow me anyway. Nah, that couldn't have been me. I'm too much of a bitch. And America. I'd have lit that whole room up. I'll be damned. Would I add a whole room out just to kill one bug? You got right. Especially if it was that goddamn big.
Es una hada. Mira. Esto es una hada.
Those don't even look remotely the same. Is she? Oh my goodness. She might be dumb. I would have myself so bad. I would have lit that room up. You just saw a praying mantis turn into a little elf fairy thing and you're not alarmed at all. That's crazy. The sound design for this particular score in this scene is absolutely beautiful. It is astounding how much depth music can add to a scene. It's so hard to describe, and I wish I had the vocabulary to go into more detail or even be more knowledgeable about this subject when it comes to like scoring in movies and stuff like that, but I'm not quite there in my like film buff journey. But this scene would be interesting if it was silent, like no sound, nothing, but it is taken to its utmost beauty, I guess, or like, you know, it is elevated in such a way by the scoring, like this orchestral sort of, oh yeah, I don't know, like I'm not there yet, but like this orchestra of sound, like the fluttering of the wings and her footsteps walking, and I guess like it's not just music but like also Foley as well, but like there's so many pieces to this scene that go unnoted, and it's like a cake, you know what I mean? When you eat a cake, you don't necessarily taste every individual ingredient that took to make that cake, but it took every single piece of like every single bit, like from the eggs, the flour, the vanilla, every single bit of that cake was necessary to make it delicious. And every single part of a movie scene is needed to make it spectacular, to simplify it as much as I possibly can. Also, her mom might have been right. I feel like she has too much whimsy if she's going to follow a cockroach that just like evolved in front of her down a well. Ooh, holy sh! Oh god, that just scared the absolute crap out of me. Wow, I was like so focused and oh wow, okay, I need a minute. Oh wow, okay. I absolutely hate him from the bottom of my heart, but that's how I know he's a good actor. Whenever I genuinely start to hate the person I see on screen, that's when I know like, oh, he did his, like that person, that actor or actress did their job. They acted their ass off. Especially when it's like a villain. It's obviously not very hard to hate Nazis in fiction and in real life, but that make me hate or like feel like actual emotion. I think it's easier, at least for me, because I have a strong sense of like, I have a strong like moral compass, but I try to like view things with empathy kind of thing. Like I'm very much someone who's like everybody can be redeemed kind of thing. So like even a villain can have a redemption arc. I'm very big on redemption arcs with like Zuko, Vegeta kind of thing. But Nazis and like just purely evil characters are very easy targets. So when they get punished, I feel a sense of relief. But when they don't get punished, I feel like dissatisfied with the story. Like a story can be completely ruined for me, no matter the medium, if the villain doesn't receive some sort of punishment. And I will even take like a redemption arc as quote unquote punishment, because a proper redemption arc, there needs to be at least two things. There needs to be a sense of guilt and a path of righting a wrong or righting the wrongs kind of thing. So if the redemption arc is done poorly, I hate it. But if a bad guy is not punished properly, whether like, I don't know, beaten, killed, I'll take like, you know, the death of a villain as punishment. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's better than what they deserve, but regardless, to end this point, I need the bad guy to be punished. And Nazis are easy to hate, or purely evil characters are easy to hate. I just love when someone can really make me hate a character. You know, it makes me want their punishment even more. Because I know there's no redemption for this character. That would be crazy.
De charol. ¿Te gustan? Sí, son muy bonitos.
Do you feel bonito? Sí, I feel muy bonito.
Quizá no sea nada, mi capitán.
I wonder if he's like weary of her or something like that. I was so worried like when they were checking the bags of the farmers earlier, if they would like find something getting back to her. I'm rooting for her so bad. Even more, like I'm almost more interested in what Mercedes has going on than almost like an Ophelia at times.
Vivían en armonía los animales, los hombres y las criaturas mágicas.
Which I believe none of, because so far every creature they've shown was full of terror and fear. At least I was whenever I saw any of them. But I guess that would be if like fairies and fawn and all that other stuff actually existed. They would have morphed into something more beautiful than like their actual quote unquote real counterparts would be. Like the same way all the Brothers Grimm stories and stuff like that, like they were Disney-fied. They became like more beautiful and pretty than like, you know, after Disney got a hold of them in their modern interpretations than they actually originally were. So I guess that, you know, in a way makes sense. See me? I'm the type of bitch that would have fainted. I hate bugs. I would have simply just laid there and died.
Han salido escopeteados.
I'm curious because, you know, everything in a movie is very intentional. What is the intent or what is the purpose of having the backdrop of this be, you know, World War II? Like I know like this fascist in the woods kind of thing. I remember seeing that at the beginning, but like why during like the 40s? Nothing so far, at least from what I've seen, couldn't have happened in, I don't know, like the 80s or 50s or 60s. Like there's nothing about this specific time period and like fascist soldiers or anything, you know. So I'm curious how to like tie it together to make it make sense. Or maybe it was just like a creative decision, you know what I mean? But, you know, I'm curious as to why it was a creative decision.
¡Eh! ¡Os habéis olvidado esto! ¡Y el billete de lotería! ¿Por qué no bajáis a por él? ¡Tendría huevos que os tocara!
Why would they leave those things? Like, if you've been invading this enemy force for what seems like quite some time, why would you make such a big mistake like this now? By starting like a fire during the day so close to their camp, leaving a lottery ticket, you know, putting Mercedes at risk by leaving antibiotics behind. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe this is a strategic point, but like, this seems a bit silly. She just killed a frog because some weirdo in a suit told her she was a princess. It's crazy.
Hijo, nazca en una España limpia y nueva. Porque esta gente parte de una idea equivocada, que somos todos iguales.
I want him to get stabbed in the neck. I don't know how violent my rhetoric can be, but these are fictional Nazis. So I guess it doesn't really matter. But Jesus Christ.
El capitán y yo nos volvimos a encontrar. Qué curioso, ¿verdad? Digo yo. Volverse a encontrar después de tanto tiempo.
I'm curious why he detests her in some way. I guess, like, I don't know. It's probably like a sexist, misogynistic thing. I don't know.
Cuando el general Vidal murió en el campo de batalla, estrelló su reloj contra el suelo para que constara la hora exacta de su muerte. Para que su hijo supiera cómo muere un valiente.
Habladurías. Nunca tuvo un reloj.
Lo que has hecho.
Ooh. That's so interesting. Because he definitely carries a watch. We saw him clean it earlier. That on top of like why he's so, well, I guess it like all is kind of like, you know, I guess it all makes sense in a lot of ways. He wants a son. He didn't know his father really. He won't even claim that like the watch that he carries around and, you know, dedicates time to clean and maintain even exists. He's just an incredibly emotionally stunted man, which does still tie back into modern times of like men who are emotionally stunted and instead of going to therapy or trying to, you know, reconcile their issues, you know, turn to like alt-right pipelines and red pill shit and just misogyny and just become terrible people. Interesting. Bro, if you want to show up at my house, at least be in your little fairy form. Come on now, I fucking hate bugs. Also, I'm so curious, like, maybe I just don't have enough, like, historical context because I'm a dumb American and they didn't do a good job of teaching us history. But, like, why did she decide to marry a Nazi? Maybe it's the only person who would have taken her cat? Like, I just don't get it. Like, there had to be other men. The pickings couldn't have been that slim in the 40s, right? Ooh, that's heartbreaking. A miscarriage. That's sad. But I guess, like, it makes sense. She's been sick the entire movie. One thing I love about, like, stories and analysis and stuff like that is that, like, there's a good story has so many layers to it that you don't even necessarily notice. For example, like, on the surface, you think that, like the story is about, like, Ophelia and her mother moving to live with this man in the woods, like, this Nazi or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, her father died, her mom remarries, and she doesn't like her, like, stepfather, because obviously, and all of the issues that ensue on top of that. And, like, if that's, and that's fine if that's, like, the breadth of your analysis of the story. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Like, there's no judgment behind that. And you could stop there and still be correct, but you could dig a little deeper and you could recognize and see that beyond that, the story is deeper than that, because the story is also about how Ophelia, throughout this entire process so far, is alienated due to, so far, her mom's selfishness, things not being explained to her, probably because she's a child, the cruelty of the captain, and that pushes her more and more towards what could be dangerous, you know what I mean? And that can be an allegory for various different things, and this could be all fake and it would still tell a very potent story. If you just stop at the surface, sure, you could tell a story about like how her mom moved to this space and that's the driving force of the story, but not really, because beyond all that, what's driving everything is Ophelia's growing isolation and no one taking the time to be like, hey, are you okay about all this? I hope that makes sense. I'm rambling a little bit, but like Ophelia's isolation is what's driving everything, not necessarily her mom just moving or like the captain or anything like that. Like those are all subplots, but like what's more important in keeping the story interesting is how things kind of just get worse for Ophelia until eventually it gets to a point where it's like it seems like there's no hope, because at the beginning of the movie we see that like she's bleeding and possibly dying. So like how do we get a very lonely and sad Ophelia to a point of where that's almost preferable in a way? You know what I mean? Like maybe I don't know. Oh shit, now she's gonna have to put a pillow over Ophelia's face in the middle of the night. Also like that Mercedes has become a pseudo mother figure, but in like a pleasant way. I think in a lot of stories they'll try to push a figure onto someone and it can feel a bit forced, or it can feel like unearned in a way. But because I don't want to place judgment on Ophelia's mother, you know, maybe she's in a bad situation trying to make the best of it, sure, but the way that they have portrayed Ophelia's mother is she's been a selfish, you know what I mean? Like, oh, like you need to call this man father. Like she's been kind and polite to Ophelia. She hasn't mistreated Ophelia, but she's been emotionally just like neglecting her. Like I think people truly underestimate how intelligent and how intelligent children are to begin with. But like if you just explain things to them to the best of your abilities, how much better like just communication as a human being is good. It's always better to just learn how to communicate, even with children, and don't just shove them in this situation under some pretense of like, I'm an adult, I know better, you know what I mean? Which I always hated growing up, because it's like, now that I'm actually an adult, oh, I don't know better. Like there's plenty of adults who don't know better. No one knows better. We're all just kind of trying our best. And so the fact that like a lot of stories just kind of go, oh, like children must be seen and not heard and obey, is like, I always hated it. Like I don't want kids, but like I feel like kids should be treated with like, within boundaries of course, but like treated with some sort of agency and autonomy as like another human being with thought and sentience, and not just like some toy.
Dale de beber 2 gotas de sangre. Ahora lleva a cabo la prueba.
I like how you can't tell that whether or not all of this is a figment of Ophelia's imagination or not. I think it's just like an interesting part of like the plot where it's, oh, it's just the imagination of the overactive imagination of a child, or is all of this like real? You know, like I like stories like that where it's like, as long as it's done right, you know what I mean? Like I feel like it can also be like a cop out where a lot of stories will go like, oh, it was all like a dream, or it was all like, you know, like all of it happened. Which reminds me, I absolutely hate, and this is a bit of a tangent, but I absolutely hate when time-based like stories will do this thing where it's like, oh, like it was just like a separate reality. Oh, like, oh, he went back in time, but like because he went back in time, this thing happened, or like this thing didn't happen, so like everything's erased or whatever. Like, you know, it just creates this like like loop in logic that doesn't make sense, because if you follow it to its conclusion, then nothing makes sense. Like, for example, spoiler alert, in Samurai Jack and I forget the daughter of Aku who he falls in love with, basically he gets Aki or something, like he gets back to his time period and defeats Aku, and he has this like beautiful wedding and he falls in love. He gets like this moment of reprieve kind of thing, and I know they changed it, but hear me out, let me cook. He has this beautiful moment of reprieve after like this emotional battle, this physical battle for decades, and he gets like peace. You know, he gets this moment of like, okay, I did it, the mission is accomplished, I can finally allow myself happiness. And their logic was, oh, because he went back into the past to his proper time and killed Aku's daughter never existed. But that doesn't make sense. So she disappears. Spoiler alert. But because she never existed, that means he never could have gotten back to the past. So he should be back into the future. Like, everything is erased. Because, like, just follow that. Basically, my point is, a lot of stories that use time will use the logic of time and space as like, oh, because of A, B can happen. Or whatever. I'm like going on a tangent, but like, because like we have A, and because we have A, C can now happen. But because B happened, now C can't exist. Okay, then that means we're back at square one where A still happens. It's my entire point. Like, because he went back to the past using the daughter and her powers, she disappeared. But because she disappeared and didn't exist, that means he never got back to the past. Anyway, I don't know if I'll keep this in, but I just hate it.
Trataré de hacerlo en tan pocos cortes como me sea posible.
Fuck whiskey. I'd have asked him to hit me over the head with a brick. Ain't no way. I would have screamed so loud that they would have found us.
Ni bebáis nada durante vuestra estancia. Y aseguraos de volver antes de que caiga el último grano de arena.
For some reason, that reminds me a lot of Alice in Wonderland, and I'm not sure why. Was there Hourglass and Alice in Wonderland as well? So you better hurry up. That's obviously not a whole lot of time. That's like 10 minutes max, maybe 5. I feel like the pile of shoes, and maybe I'm biased and I always want to feel like my theories are correct, but I feel like with the pile of like children's shoes, you could make an even stronger argument that this might not be real. And this is a little girl with a very powerful imagination, sort of trying to rationalize, well, not even rationalize, but like make sense of all the death and destruction around her that she would likely be seeing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know if there were concentration camps in Spain at the time, but I feel like you could make an argument that, like, you know, maybe she stumbled into a concentration camp and she sees like the pile of shoes, and the only way that like this little girl who has gone from like a relatively normal life, I guess as normal as you could have had in Spain in the 40s during World War II, to even like out of the frying pan into the fire kind of thing, where like now she's surrounded by like actual Nazis and like is related to one now is her stepfather, and she's trying to process and she can't. So it's like, oh, okay, like she's conjured up monsters as like fictitious monsters kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because, you know, but I don't know, like it's just very reminiscent of like when I went to the Holocaust Museum as a child, and like, you know, like one of the exhibits is like these pile of shoes, you know, which was heartbreaking, of course. Hey, I'm gonna need you to be less curious right now. You're literally 10 feet away from a monster with no eyeballs. In fact, the eyeballs are sitting on a plate in front of it. Maybe let's not get too curious or even hungry right now. You should not have an appetite right now. Girl, you don't hear Darth Vader behind you? What is happening? I don't want to say she deserves whatever happens, but how many times you got to get warned? But I feel like it's very childlike to be told not to do something. It's in your best interest not to do this thing. Please don't do this thing, and to do it anyway. The whims of a child, you know? I forgot what her brother looked like. Was that her brother? Wait, was that the one who stuttered? I don't remember.
Lo llevo yo.
They keep showing that knife. I feel like that knife is important. And I feel like at some point, someone, if not her, is going to slit the captain's throat with that knife. It's twice now. And that's also a really cool thing about like watching movies and like looking at them not as just, you know, a consumer, but also as someone who wants to get into the craft of it. you really start to pick up like really itty bitty things that's like, ooh, that's important. Like every single shot, every single sound choice, every single choice of like color grading and lighting and everything when it comes to making a movie, especially if the movie is good, was thought out and made with intention and was meticulously like such detail was put into this thing that like you could like break down every single scene and, oh, why would they do this, and like give at length explanations for every single choice.
Ya casi acaba todo.
Well, that's heartbreaking. He's about to kill the doctor. Damn. Well, there goes my theory that this is all just her imagination. I like the theory though. Damn, that's quite sad actually. Watch it be a girl. But my predictions have been quite wrong so far. I'm like 2-0. Oh, that's even worse. Wow.
La llave. Yo tengo la única copia, ¿no es verdad?
Sí, señor.
¿Sabe? Hay algo que me molesta. Un pequeño detalle. No tiene mucha importancia, pero el día en que entraron en la bodega, con tanta granada y explosivos, el candado no estaba forzado.
Maybe because I'm like watching, I feel like they should have thought of that. That feels like an important detail that you shouldn't forget if you're a resistance group, or that she should have remembered. Poor Ophelia. I feel so bad for her. Assuming that like all the magic stuff is real because, you know, of her adolescent brain and her actions, she's no longer like immortal or a princess with a kingdom waiting for her, even if the kingdom was probably like kind of creepy and demonish. Her mom is dead. Her stepdad is a Nazi. Poor baby.
Y si alguien intenta entrar, mátenla a ella primero.
I feel like this also, I don't know, there's only like 30 minutes left in the movie, probably like 20. Ophelia's mom isn't the main villain of the movie, but I feel like you can make an argument that she is a villain of the movie. Now again, maybe there's historical context that I'm not necessarily taking into consideration because I'm watching this movie at like 4 a.m. and I'm, you know, just not thinking about it. But I understand to some degree that there probably likely wasn't a whole lot of options for a widow in the 40s. I get it. There probably wasn't a whole lot of job selection. There probably wasn't a whole lot of men available, you know, during the war. Like there wasn't a whole lot of option for her. But I feel like as a parent and as someone who doesn't want to be a parent but has been traumatized by their parents, there are things that you need to take into consideration when you do things that like when you're in a relationship with another person, you can no longer just do things on a whim. You have to take this person's emotional well-being and physical well-being into consideration. Like, what'll happen if I do this dumb thing? When you're a parent, that's 100 times even more the case. I understand that she was desperate, but why would you marry a Nazi? Why would you marry someone who you know is a cruel and evil person? Because especially if you're sick, like, I get it, but like, I don't know, like, I want to empathize with Ophelia's mother, but it is difficult because this man just said, if anyone tries to get into this room, kill this child. What if I forget which movie I was watching. I forgot my larger point. You have to take into consideration the evil that is this other person. I am reminded of, I think the movie was The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. I could be wrong, but like at one point, one of the Nazis who works for the boy's father or whatever turns out to be a PDF file, you know, because he's like dating the little boy's older sister, who's probably like 13, and the guy working for him is probably like, I don't know, like 19. Either way, super creepy. My larger point is, it's hard not to vilify Ophelia's mother, because I don't think it's that bad of a stretch to be like, if someone is like this evil murdering fascist, what's to say that he wouldn't hurt a child physically, mentally, emotionally, or even sexually? Like I don't want to get like the video flagged, but like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like that's something you should have considered. Like I know you were desperate, but what about this child, you know?
Cosas que aprende uno por ahí. Al principio no voy a poder confiar.
You really should have went for the throat. He's not gonna let you live. You might as well take him with you. Come on now, you should have. I guess it would have been harder. No, I mean, you should have just killed him. I mean, he deserved all of that and more, but. I really think on some level this is just a move. Well, I think would be a fair argument to say that a through line in this movie is desperate people trying to do the best that they can in a very desperate situation, not to use the word twice. Ophelia, whether what she was seeing or not is real, but I feel like the fact that like all the fantastical aspects of the movie are completely gone now, that like it wasn't real, kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, because she ate 2 grapes, that's it, but you know, there's still time left in the movie. Her mom marrying a Nazi, like the brother not taking the advice of the doctor, who, you know, you could argue was also just trying to do his best in a bad situation. You know, yeah, he was working for Nazis, but he was also helping the resistance, and you know, whatever his story was is irrelevant. And like the brother not taking the advice and running away with his sister, you know, to safety and stuff like that, which, you know, it's noble to want to fight for your home and against fascists, you know, there's nothing there's honor in that, of course, but I think like the movie's greater plot in a lot of ways, and well, I guess a theme, is just desperate people doing the best that they can in this horrific situation, you know, where there is little hope, that there is no hope. There my loudmouth ass go once again, speaking too soon. I said all the magic was gone. My bad. You know what I found interesting, but I didn't know how to word it because I didn't want it to seem like a compliment to the Nazi dude. But I do think that it is interesting that they made him in a way cool, and not in a way that's like glorifying the fact that he's a Nazi, you know what I mean? It's not like in a dog whistle kind of way, but they made him cool in the sense that like he is what a lot of red-pilled chronically online weirdos would look at and be like, oh, this is like his masculinity, like he is cool, like he drinks hard liquor, I don't know, traditional sort of like, oh, I have a wife who's like my fucking broodmare. She's dead, but she bared me an heir. Is, you know, just peak masculinity sort of thing. Like they could have made him a goober. They could have done so much other things with him, but they have made him very much this pinnacle of masculine. Like, and I'm watching this as he like stitches his face back up, and he just takes it. And on some level, he is kind of cool, but not in a way that is glorifying that. Again, like I want to reiterate, I don't think he's cool. Like I just think it is an interesting directive choice, and I'm curious why. And maybe I can't necessarily articulate or come up with my own theories as to why they would. Well, maybe in some way that they did that because it is to compensate for his lack of emotional intelligence and maturity. This is a man who grew up without a father and was taught that like his father was a great soldier, was like this masculine figure of machismo, and he has spent his entire life trying to embody that, and he not only resents his father in some way but resents himself for it, which I feel like was shown in an earlier scene where he's shaving and he's just staring at himself, and he's staring at himself with such content that like he takes the razor that he shaves his face with normally and slices the mirror where his neck would be. He doesn't want to be who he is, and that is in no way to give him grace, but he does not want to be who who he is. He quite possibly wishes he was somebody else, but he can't be because this is all he knows, this is all he was taught, and maybe on some level he wishes he was dead. I don't know, but it is interesting. And again, I want to reiterate, I don't think he's cool. I think that it was a creative choice to make him what other people would view as cool, like this very machismo, dogmatic, stoic man. I wish I knew what the hell that was so I could cheer her on and tell her put even more into it. I'm assuming it's some sort of heroin. Like it's the 40s, like the joke I made earlier. Like it's probably like just pure, unfiltered, straight from the plant opium. Probably didn't even dilute it or anything like that. It's just pure extract of will put you in a fucking coma and stop your heart opium. I feel like there's so much happening in like the last like 15-20 minutes of the movie that like I'm almost gearing myself up for an unsatisfying ending, but I'm going to believe in the movie and the creative process. I'm gonna let bro cook.
Lo niego.
Hágase pues.
Another point that she just has an insane imagination and she's trying to like rationalize all the horrors that she's seen. I like my theory more. He deserved more than that in the sense that he should have died a lot slower. You know what? In fact, I'm going to rewind it.
Decidle a qué hora murió su padre.
So satisfying. That beautiful payoff.
Y sentaos junto a vuestro padre, que tan largo tiempo os ha esperado.
This is a lot to take in like the last 10 minutes of a movie. I need like a comic book, an animated mini-series on just like this part and the lore of all of this. Like I'm almost disappointed that like there isn't more on this entire kingdom, I guess, you know what I mean? Like, and like, so is she like the reincarnation of his first daughter? But if so, like why does the queen look like her mother? But like is the mother also reincarnated? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm so confused. But also, I'm glad that like this kingdom isn't like evil people and like she had to do the right thing, even though it was unintentional, to be rewarded, I guess. You could also argue that this is just like her brain once for the final time sort of rationalizing in a way, or taking this like horrific thing of her slowly bleeding out and dying and just going like one last hurrah kind of thing, as like morbid as that sounds. None of this was real. It was all her imagination just trying to justify and make sense of a cruel world that doesn't make sense. And as this child bleeds out and takes her final breaths, it's like, oh, all of this was worth it because I'm a princess now.
Y que ahí reinó con justicia y bondad por muchos siglos, que fue amada por sus súbditos y que dejó detrás de sí pequeñas huellas de su paso por el mundo, visibles solo para aquel que sepa dónde mirar.
Beautiful. I'm at a loss for words. That was my first time seeing Pan's Labyrinth, and I originally was going to just like watch like an hour of it and then over the course of a couple of days finish the movie and give my commentary, but I ended up sitting down for the entire length of the movie and still giving commentary and stuff like that. And I think that one, that is a testament to how good the movie is. I have a very bad attention span, so it is very difficult to capture my attention to the point where I want to finish something, you know, like it's very difficult for me to finish things. So the fact that this movie was able to do that is one, already makes it like baseline 6 or 7, you know what I mean? Like it is a good or even great movie that in the fact that like it was able to keep my attention. And there's just so much good about this movie that it's almost difficult to formulate thoughts. And maybe that's a good thing, you know? Like there's so much good about this movie, from like, I wish there was more lore, of course, and I feel like that takes a couple points away from it. But ultimately, there's so much good about this movie. Everybody acted so well, you know what I mean? Like, I genuinely felt that like I was immersed in this world. You know, Ophelia was phenomenal. Her mom did it, like the actress who played her mom did a great job. The captain, Vidal or whatever his name is, phenomenal. I hated him with every fiber of my being. Like, after I'm done recording, I'm gonna rewind and just watch his death scene one more time for me. Like Tom Hanks' character in Saving Private Ryan. That one's just gonna be for me. I'm gonna keep that one to myself. And I like the sound, the music, how it was able to capture this fantastic world that like made me so curious about more. Like it has captured me to such a degree that like I wish that I could like write a comic about the world and add depth and lore and everything to it, because like there was so much there, from like how dark and macabre everything seemed at the beginning, with how like they described the world and almost how gross it was, you know what I mean, and scary, but like how everything was so beautiful at the end, you know, like it was the underworld, so you expected it to be dark and grim and stuff like that, but it was actually beautiful, you know. And I think you could make an argument that like that was just her going to heaven kind of thing, you know, like, oh, my parents are here and I'm a princess, and it almost makes me sad that like there isn't like a confirmation. I guess like they sort of teeter in between, like, is this just her imagination? Is this real? Like, the root was real, and like you saw it scream, and then her mom died once the root was burned. So like maybe there is some reality to this, but like the captain couldn't see the fawn, and it's like they teeter, and it's almost like being blue balled, because it's like, especially because her dying is so emotionally impactful, like it's almost like I want her to go to heaven, or like I want her to actually be a princess who like ruled over this kingdom, and that like, you know, her short-lived life, which was probably difficult because we obviously didn't see all of her life, but like just in however long it takes for her mom to move, like the year or so that like she moved where she was from and moved to that small little villa or whatever, in that time, how sad that life was, you know, on top of how sad and difficult it must have been to just be a child during World War II, that like I want her to have some sort of reprieve. I always want characters, especially if they're like innocent and good, and like a lot of children, especially depicted in media, are good and innocent in general and in real life, of course, but like I want her to have some sort of peace, you know, whether that's going to heaven or like she actually became a princess and a queen who ruled forever. I also, speaking of like her death, you see it at the beginning of the movie. I love movies that do that. It takes a special kind of like creativity and artistry to tell the end of the story in some ways and still keep the audience interested in what happens, you know what I mean? Like, what is it? Grave of Fireflies does the exact same thing. Spoiler if you haven't seen that, even though it's like a 20-year-old movie. Grave of Fireflies starts off with the main characters. I also have a video of that, but you should go check that out. It starts off with the main character describing his own death and how he has died. Like, the narrator is describing how he has died, and A Grave of Fireflies is still able, even though you know the ending, you know what's going to happen, it somehow does this beautiful and phenomenal job of keeping you interested in how it got there. And the payoff is you sobbing, or at least me sobbing in the middle of the night, wondering how much of a sicko Miyazaki must be. It is such a beautiful way of like to tell the ending and still be able to make people interested and still like have that emotional depth, because like it's almost a spoiler in a way. If you are able to spoil the story but do it in such a way where it's like, okay, I know what happens in the end, but I'm still so engrossed and you kept my attention, it's so beautiful. That's one of, like, I will forever praise stories that are able to do that in a way, you know. There's just so much great about this movie. I mean, it's interesting that I can love a movie so much, because I love this movie, but it still not be my like favorite movie, you know. I don't know, because I love this movie, but I wouldn't call it my favorite movie. I think that's interesting. This is just a random thought that I had, because I also saw Saving Private Ryan recently, and that's one of the greatest movies ever made, but it's still not one of my favorite movies. And I guess like maybe I'm not enough of a film buff, or like the movies I consider my personal favorites have like did something for me that like other movies don't emotionally, or like resonated with me in a way that like other movies necessarily can't. So I don't know. Everything was great about this movie. I especially love like the sound, like everything, like the Foley and the music, and how it felt like you were in like a twisted version of a Disney movie. It's a beautiful movie, and it's unfortunate that like I'm late to the party, but I think in a way that's a good thing, because I get to experience these things for the first time. Someone who's seen Pan's Labyrinth a million times or already seen it, they got their hit of dopamine, you know what I mean? Like, they caught the dragon. I, for the first time, have seen it, and on my journey as a writer and as I progress and make my own strides creatively, one, I hope that like I am able to tell stories of this magnitude that deserve to be talked about as like some of the greatest movies ever. You know, I would be so lucky. But I think also because I am able, like, I'm now seeing a lot of these like, you know, top 100 lists, movies kind of thing, like one of the contenders on like such a list, for the first time I'm able to take these things in and add them to, I guess the best way to put it, my own library of creativity. You know what I mean? Take the little pieces that I like, you know, throw away the parts that I didn't, and then someday I will be able to create my own beautiful works of art. It's such a great movie. Anyway, I'm rambling, but it's my channel, so I get to ramble. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the commentary. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Consider liking, leaving a comment, maybe tell me what your favorite part of the movie is, what you think of my theory. Anyway, thank you for watching. Peace.